Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast. I hope you've had an absolutely fantastic week in this last 7 days since we were here. Here in Australia, we've had a change of government. And I think everybody's breathing a sigh of relief here that the electioneering and the campaigning and the garbage is over with. And, you know, anytime you have a change like that, it's always a time for optimism. It's always a time to look towards the future and hope that maybe things might be a little bit brighter in the coming years. I mean, for most people around the world, politics is one of those words that they like to avoid. And when it comes time for your own elections, you sort of get drowned in the political hype and the BS that goes on. And then when it's all over, you breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, great, now life can get back to some sort of normality. And I think that's sort of the theme of what's happening around the world, is that there is so many changes happening at the moment. You know, we've got the Quad happening overseas at the moment with the USA and Japan and India and Australia, while they try and nut out some sort of solutions going forward, particularly towards climate change, which is a very welcome conversation in my opinion. So it's interesting to see that the world is still starting to sort of slowly come back to some sort of normality out of the pandemic. The pandemic is not over by a long shot in my opinion, but at least we're starting to sort of focus on other issues and look at the sort of longer term things like climate change and how the world is going to get back to sort of trading in this new normal as things sort of slowly start to unfold. So this week it's very interesting. The Simply Tarot card of the week that I've pulled this week. People are going to say, oh, shock horror, I don't know that I really like this one. But anyway, here goes. It's the Four of Swords. Now, it is the card of sickness and bed illness. Now, I want to be very clear, not every person on the planet is going to be sick or needing to find a bed this week to rest in, but it's asking all of us to take a little bit of time out. Some rest and relaxation is what is needed here. So for many of us, it's been a very busy time in our lives that it's now time, I think, we can take a little bit of a breather and say, okay, I can allow myself a little bit of time to do something that I really like, something that puts a smile on my face, something that makes me feel refreshed. You know, for some people, that's going to the gym. For other people, it's going for a walk, it's spending time with family, going to a movie, or even just listening to your favourite music or losing yourself in a movie. It's one of those rare times that I'm going to give you permission to put yourself on the couch with a good book or a movie or some music on your favourite device and just chill out. I think we could all do with a little bit of chilling out at the moment. I think we've all been through so much in this last 2 or 3 years that we can give ourselves a little bit of a leeway here and say, okay, you have my permission to take some time out. And even if it's only half an hour out of your busy life, you'll be surprised how quickly that can recharge your batteries. Now, for some people, obviously, there will be some form of sickness, and this is just indicating it's because you've been worn out. So let's all take that as a warning that we all need to schedule some downtime, you know, some time, some me time, as they call it. I don't do it often enough, and I'm sure there's plenty of people around the globe that don't do it, and I know my producer doesn't do it, so I'm going to have a chat with him after the show and tell him to schedule some downtime. So for the rest of us mere mortals, let's get on with the astrology section of the show. It's a really exciting time. I always get excited when the sun moves into another sign because it's like a freshness. It's like a brand new burst of energy coming through all of us because, you know, we've had 30 days of the previous sign. Well, the sun's just moved into Gemini, and I always find this a very exciting time of the year. It's towards the middle of the year. It's when bright ideas, new ideas, things become fresh again. For the Northern Hemisphere people, it's when you get out and you start enjoying the sunshine and you have more communication and you have picnics in the park and barbecues and really enjoy the outdoors. Here in Australia, we start looking for the heater and the doona because it's our winter time. But for us, I think the fresh ideas come out of being able to sort of slow down just slightly and sort of do by spending some time inside and maybe slowing things down just marginally, that we start to get fresh ideas by that because it's a change of the season that we all start to sort of think differently. And I think this is really important at the moment because we've all had so much we've had to deal with. You know, 5 months of the year has gone already and with a blink of an eye, and it's sort of like time seems to be moving so fast. So we all need to sort of be looking out for those new, innovative, fresh ideas that will carry us through to the end of the year. We still have Mercury, the planet of communication, which is retrograde at the moment or going backwards, which means it's a time that you need to be very, very clear on your communication. It's the time when a lot of people don't have their listening ears on, or they're preoccupied with their own thoughts and their own things that are going on in their head, or things that they need to say, that they're not really paying attention to what you've got to say. Now, this will carry on until June 2nd, so we still have a little bit of waiting time here with Mercury retrograde. Now, the fact that Mercury has just slipped back into Taurus, it was in Gemini last week in its own sign where it felt incredibly comfortable, even though, communication may not have been as clear as what a lot of people would have liked it. It certainly felt more comfortable there. He's just slipped back into Taurus. So this is going to sort of make conversations a little bit more tricky. It's going to be more about me. What do I need? My goals, my ambitions, my money, my this, my that. And again, I can't stress enough that the other person may not have their listening ears on. So if it's a conversation that's important that you get an answer to, or you get an answer with clarity, then make sure you clarify this, that they have heard what you've said, they have agreed to what you've said, and that they fully understand it before moving on. So June 2nd is when Mercury starts to go direct again, and we'll all breathe a sigh of relief then, I can assure you. So we have Neptune conjunct or holding hands Mars in Pisces. Now, Neptune's the planet of illusion or delusion, but I'm also very fond of Neptune because Neptune's back in his own ruling sign of Pisces, where he feels incredibly comfortable. This is also where tremendous creativity can come from. It's where we all sort of start to feel now, regardless of your sign, as if we're coming out of a fog, as if, the tunnel's been very long and very dark, and finally now we're starting to see glimmers of sunlight, glimmers of light, glimmers of hope, that we can start to sort of feel that not all the problems might have been solved yet, but we've got some potential solutions here, some glimmers of hope, things to hang on to. And I think that's really important now, more than ever, because we've had such a long period of time where we've been dealing with COVID and we've been dealing with changes around the world and, governments that some people liked and some people didn't like. And it's just sort of seems to have been a very pressurized time. And it's like now for many of us, we start to see a glimmer of hope, that we can start to see things are starting to maybe take shape, not necessarily in the way that we wanted them to, but in a way that we can adapt and be comfortable with. And I think that's the important thing, is being adaptable, being comfortable with the way the changes are unfolding. It's not always to our liking, but we can turn around and embrace it and make it our new normal and be really excited and really comfortable with the direction that we're being, cajoled into, let's say. So Mars is actually holding hands with Neptune here. Now, Mars is the planet of action, the planet of war, but it's also the planet of the ego, the drive, the thing that gets us out of bed of a morning. So with Mars sitting here holding hands with Neptune, I'm really excited because I feel that this is a time when we can have some great creative breakthroughs. It's the time for anybody that's starting a new business, dream big. Set your sights high. Yes, you've got to work within your parameters of your finances, but it's a time that you can dream and sort of set goals that might seem a little bit unrealistic and aim for the stars, because anything is possible at the moment. It's a perfect time for people that write scripts or write music or anything on a creative level, poetry, painting, create music, create movies. It's just a perfect time for that because all those creative juices are on steroids at the moment, and there's a lot of amazing information that's going to be shared with us, that those real special light bulb moments of creativity that are happening at the moment. And this is really good. It's really quite exciting. We also have Mars, and I just spoke about Mars being in Pisces, is also conjunct or holding hands with Jupiter in Aries. Now, these two planets are sitting in separate signs. Now, we've just spoken about Mars and the action and the opportunities and the creativity that can come out of being in Pisces. Now, Jupiter has just gone into Aries in the last week or so. That is indicating for the next 12 months, Aries people have an opportunity to shine. They have an opportunity for their lives to expand out, to create opportunities, new opportunities that they couldn't begin to imagine. Luck is on their side for 12 months. Now, that can also mean expanding waistlines too. So they need to be careful that they don't do things in excess. anytime you see Jupiter, you also have to think of expansion, and expansion in every area. It'd be nice if it was just an expanding bank balance, but sometimes it's an expanding waistline as well. So with Mars here conjunct Jupiter, it's an opportunity, particularly for Pisces and Jupiter people, Pisces and Aries people, to really shine at the moment. There could be some opportunities that could cross over between being creative and the opportunity to knock on doors or to have people listen to your ideas and fully embrace them and take you up on. So it's a time there where I think you need to get your creative hat on. You need to be a little bit forthright. You need to knock on a few doors and say, hey, I'm here. This is my idea. What do you think about it? This could also lead you to, bringing in some very, very fortunate opportunities for you that you haven't been able to bring forward before. So I can't stress enough, please don't waste this time, particularly if you're an Aries. This opportunity only comes around once every 12 years. And I don't need to say to you, 12 years is a long time between drinks. As we start to get more mature and older, we start to realise that time becomes more valuable. You blink of an eye and another year's gone. But, when you're looking to sort of create something new or to really have people listen to you and take notice of what you've got to say, or the opportunities that are rolling around in your head, to wait another 12 years is a very, very long time to get that opportunity again. So we really do need to capitalize on this and work with the energy that's sort of happening at the moment. Aries people are in a really good position at the moment because they've got one of the Arabian parts also conjunct or holding hands with Jupiter at the moment, called the part of fortune. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to make a fortune or you're going to win the lottery or the lotto or anything like that. It means that you have an opportunity now to bring into your life things that are going to make you feel very fortunate, that make you feel like you've made it. So again, this is a really promising aspect that's only going to be there for a short space in time. So please don't squander this energy. It's a time where your energy should be very high. It's a time where people are taking notice of you. It's the time that you can sell your ideas. You can sort of impress the boss. It's your time to shine. And it's not a time to be bossy or jam it down people's throats. You can be assertive, but you've got to be assertive in a positive, sort of friendly, easygoing manner. If you do that and not be sort of bossy about it, people will take more notice of you. So you've really got to be careful there, because sometimes Aries people get so excited that they forget that they've got their bossy hat on at the same time, and they need to tone that down. I'm not saying tone down your excitement. I think excitement's wonderful and enthusiasm is very infectious, but you need to make sure that it's not sort of like I'm coming in and I'm telling you what to do. I'm coming in excited and I want to share the opportunity, the excitement, my idea, my projection with you. There's a big difference. So just be a little bit careful of that if you're an Aries. So it's really interesting, though, because we've still got the usual players about the place. We've still got Pluto sitting in Capricorn. We'll be there till 2024. And I know I talk about Pluto every week, but Pluto is such a major player at the moment, because this transit of Pluto in Capricorn has been so long, since 2008, back to the global financial crisis. And it's like that seems like such a long time ago, because, we had that, and then we've had a major pandemic since then, which isn't in the rear vision mirror yet. And we've also got the threat of another major health crisis coming up too. I've been hearing about on the news this week, not quite as infectious as COVID, but, these things are still starting to be very concerning, that all of a sudden we've got one health crisis after another. Pluto's role in Capricorn is to completely transform things, is to ask us to dive under the covers, bring out into the open anything that's been hidden, whether that's from governments, whether it's from anything official, whether it's any area of the globe or our lives on a personal level that needs transforming. Now is the time. We cannot let people get away with things if they've been lying or doing the wrong thing, or things are outworn or no longer useful. Pluto will bring them to the surface and say, okay, now you must do something about it. And this is why we're going to see even more of a bigger push, I believe, towards global warming in the next couple of years, where nations will start to really take a stand on where they truly sit in that spectrum. And we're going to see people, as we've seen in the last 48 hours, nations come forward and say, okay, great, because there's been a change of government in Australia and they're leading more towards more serious targets towards global warming. You see big nations like the United Kingdom coming out and applauding that, and the USA saying, great, finally, they're on board with us, that we can all start to work towards some serious targets and let's really start to tackle this problem, as many more nations will fall in with that. So it's important to see that there may be some surprises or some changes of government around the world in the next couple of years that people say, where did that come from? Or I didn't expect that would happen, or been a long time since they've been in power. So these are the sort of things that Pluto can bring about, because Pluto needs to have the right players in the right places to bring about the changes that are necessary in the world. And the world affects each and every one of us. You know, Pluto's been such a slow-moving transit. I really pity the poor Capricornians that have had, you know, it sitting in their sign for such a long time. I know when Pluto went through Sagittarius, and it seemed like forever for me, and I fully understood Pluto's dance around the zodiac, but it seemed to be sort of, it hovers for such a sort of a long time, and as it completely tries to transform your life, and not always in ways that you think. Sometimes Pluto can work a little bit like Uranus. It can bring about something really sudden that sort of strips away things in your life, and you think, oh, that's a catastrophe. But then when you look back at it in hindsight and you work through the issue, you find that it was very, very necessary to free you up, because you were so dogmatic in the direction that you thought your life needed to take, that Pluto's got to come along and sort of rip the blanket off you and say, right, we're going to go in a different direction. And sometimes that's a little bit painful. So we're going to talk with Isabel in Cameron in Ontario in Canada. Are you there, Isabel?
I am. Thank you very much for taking my call.
You're very welcome, Isabel. Do you have a question I can work with, please, sweetie?
I was just really hoping to connect with someone in spirit.
That's not always possible, Isabel, in such a short time that we've got on the show. If you've got a question that I can answer for you, if someone comes through from the other side, I will certainly pass that message on. Sometimes they get a little bit of stage fright coming through on such a worldwide stage too. So is there area of your life you'd like me to look at, or you just want me to look at it generally?
I'd say probably just generally then, in case you get something coming through.
Okay, sweetie. All right. So the first thing that they were showing me was the fact that you're going through a period of transition. So do you feel over the last 6 months that you've been slowly working towards improving your life, bringing it more into a balance the way that you want it to be?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, well, they're sort of suggesting to me that we need to sort of ramp that up a little bit now. There's no one particular person coming through from the other side. I've got quite a group there that are sort of all sort of shouting at the same time. Now, the only way I can interpret that is that they're all getting quite excited about something that must be about to unfold in your life. So if you've been getting some strong messages or some strong dreams or some strong thought patterns, follow that. Because quite often when we're getting messages from the other side, it's not quite in the way that we anticipate it should be. Sometimes it can just be a very strong thought pattern that we can't let go of. And you think, why is that driving me nuts? It's like a song going round and round in your head and it won't let you go. That's usually coming from spirit. And they were sort of showing me that they've all been jockeying for position, trying to get a message through to you. And they all seem to think theirs is more important than the next person. So, and that's okay. So if there's been a lot of that sort of activity going on, then try and take a little bit of notice of that and see if there's any sort of pattern emerging out of that. You know, you might have had some dreams and you might have had some strong thoughts, or you might have had, gee, I hadn't heard that song in years. I wonder why, you know, and all of a sudden you're singing to it and it's going around your head for the rest of the day. They're all things coming direct from spirit. So it's sort of like we've got to put the pieces together in the jigsaw puzzle. I know by August there's going to be a massive shift in the direction, in the way that you're taking your life. And I don't mean a shift of residence. I mean a shift of your life going into sort of, it's like as if I'm going to take a really serious detour. And it's like, wow. At the same time, it's exciting, but it's also scary. And it's like, I'm ready for it. But then I sort of think, oh, am I really ready for it? It's sort of almost like, I think I'm going to say to you, for once in your life, don't think about it. Do you know what I mean? Just go with it. Just go with the hour. Mm-hmm. If you think about it too much, I think you'll actually block the momentum or the energy or the change that's coming. It's one of those times that we've also almost got to say, well, I'm on the roller coaster. I got on the ride willingly. Now I'll go with it. It's that sort of energy. And that can sometimes be a bit daunting, but I know you've got some really, really great things coming up for you. There's one man in spirit that keeps trying to push his way forward. Is that your father or your grandfather? I felt he would have been a tall man.
Probably my father, but it could be my
Okay.
grandfather too. It could be either one.
Yeah, he didn't say anything. I just got him as I felt he was a tall man. He didn't say anything, but he kept on trying to push his way to the front as if he felt he was more important than everybody else. And I don't mean he was a pushy man on earth. I felt he was actually quite a shy sort of person that wouldn't push himself to the front of the line here on earth. Is that your dad?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, well, just he hasn't said a word to me. It's just he kept pushing himself to the front, and I think he just wants to know that he's the one that's there. He's with you. He's the one that's taking charge of where your life's going, and he seemed happy. So I can only take from that he's happy with the progress that you're making, and, have a conversation with him out aloud before you go to sleep if you want an answer. Ask him, if you've got an issue, talk to him and say, Dad, I want an answer in my mind first thing in the morning. And that way then it's a direct message from him. They don't always come in a way that like we're sitting down having a conversation with them over coffee. It's not always that simple. So I hope that helps you, Isabel.
Thank you. Yes, it does.
You're very welcome. We're going to talk with Donna now in Sebring in Florida, USA. Are you there, Donna?
Yes, I am.
Do you have a question I can work with, please, Donna? What a nice part of the world, Florida. Nice and warm.
Well, my question is, I just recently had to divorce from my husband in February, and it was a 20-year marriage, which was hard. And I'm wondering if I'm ever going to be able to move on.
Donna, it's always hard when we get a divorce. People think it's easy because there's a lot of issues that have brought a couple to that point, and usually a lot of anger and sadness and disappointment and everything all rolled into one. But just because a marriage has come to an end doesn't mean that your feelings all of a sudden come to an end. You might no longer want to share a life with that person, but there's still a lot of mixed emotions and a process of grief that we have to go through. Yes, it's different to losing someone through death, but it is still a grief. So don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, it's only a few months ago. And, considering everything else you would have been through in this last few years, like everybody else with a pandemic, to have a divorce mixed into that as well is another major turning point in your life that you probably weren't expecting, and it's sort of like you've got to get your head around that. To answer your question, yes, I do believe that you will be able to move on from this. They're showing me July, August, September is sort of like you're like becoming like a butterfly. It's like you're coming out of the cocoon. You're sort of starting to see the sunlight again. You're starting to spread your wings. You're starting to feel as if you're free. And I don't mean being like a teenager and having the whole of your life ahead of you. That'd be a bit silly because you're a grown woman. But I want to sort of use the analogy of the butterfly, of being freshness, of new. You've got your beautiful wings. You're feeling free. You're feeling alive. You're feeling very much in your own skin that, the world is going to be your oyster. Now, it may be too soon for me to mention this, but I'm going to mention it anyway. I do feel that there is going to be new love. And I do feel it is going to be one of these situations that's going to take you a little bit by surprise. And it's not because he's got two heads or he's ugly or anything like that. I mean, you just didn't feel that that was where you thought your life was heading at this point. Do you know what I mean? You're still sort of trying to find your feet. You're still trying to find who Donna is and how does Donna fit into this world as an individual, as a woman in her own right that's, carving out a new future for herself. And then all of a sudden, bingo, in comes this man that sweeps you off your feet and you think, well, that wasn't part of my life plan. That wasn't where I was aiming my life was going to go. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The reasons why I think it's a good thing is because it was something that you weren't expecting. And, while you're sort of trying to find your feet in this world about where you're going and what's happening for you, all of a sudden this man slips in under the radar and you think, oh, well, what do I do with this? Like you're very nice and you're very lovely and yes, I enjoy your company, but hang on a minute, you weren't part of my plan, and it's like it makes you stop dead in your tracks again and think, oh, well, what do I do now? You know, he seems a very nice man. I'm very attracted to him. We get on really well. But hang on a minute, I was looking forward to doing this, this, and this, and this. Now, there's no reason why you still can't do the things that you planned. Sometimes the universe has other ideas for us that, you know, maybe the universe thinks that you are on an emotional level ready to have a new relationship, and particularly one that's right this time, somebody that's going to treat you like a princess and, you know, want to help you achieve your dreams and things like that. Look, I'm not going to be disrespectful to your former husband. I think, you know, he had his good points. It was more to me that the two of you'd grown apart. It wasn't so much that either one of you was particularly nasty to the other one. I think it was just over the years, the marriage itself had just kept drifting and drifting and drifting apart until all of a sudden there was nothing left. It wasn't necessarily anyone's fault. And I think that's how you've got to look at this. It's not that he did anything wrong or you did anything wrong. The universe has got a different journey for you. And with this new man coming in, and look, I don't think it's next week. I'm going to say more towards the end of the year. But it's like he keeps popping in, you know, like it. Oh. It's like something that you take up. Say if you said to me, look, I'm going to take up ballroom dancing. Well, okay, we'd expect you to meet men in a ballroom dancing situation. It's not that. It's something not like that, but it's like he keeps popping up or turning up, and it's like, oh, well, okay, I'll go out for dinner with you, but it's sort of like you're not looking at it in a potential of a relationship. And I think that's the most beautiful thing. But you've got a lot of great things going to happen for you this year, Donna. Just stay on track. I know in the next couple of months you're going to wake up one morning and you're just going to feel like a brand new person, and you'll have all the answers that you need to move forward. It's a very exciting time ahead of you. Now, that's where we're going to leave, Donna. We've come to the end of the show. It's always very exciting as we connect with people around the world. And each week now I've been trying to bring in a song that I think might be appropriate, that might be something that people haven't heard in a while, or give them a message. And today, before I came on to the show, I was just sitting there thinking, well, nothing's popped into my head this week as something that I particularly wanted to talk about as far as the song for the show. And then all of a sudden I had this tune in my head, and it had to be the one and only Frank Sinatra with I Did It My Way. And I think that's probably a very appropriate song for Donna, particularly. She has to do it her way. So until next week, I hope you enjoy listening to Frank Sinatra. And Frank is actually born on the same day as I am. He's a Sagittarian, born on the 12th. So we share a lot in common, and I'll leave you with that song, I Did It My Way.